Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Dunker Spot. We are part of 342 Productions. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me as always is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Feeling good, feeling great, happy to be here, excited to be here. Thank you, Dunkers, for once again embracing your bounce. YouTubers, hi. Dunker Nation, let's ride. Nekias! Fun weekend of hoops. It's time to hoop it up.
It is indeed time to hoop it up. I must say very quickly, like the quiet hi always gets me when speaking to the YouTube.
I don't have a name for them. I'm waiting for them to birth one in the comments that I won't see.
Well, I guess that I will read them for the both of us, and then I'll be yelled at for reading the comments. Look, just continue.
Look, man, we just got called Debo and Questlove literally 24 hours ago. So, no, I'm not reading it. Sorry. I enjoy myself. I like life.
I like life is a tremendous tagline. That's fine. That's fine. Gonna flip the order. We normally go news, and then we go W, and then we go NBA. We're gonna start with the game too. We'll start with the meat of the podcast first, see if that helps with the flow. Miami, able to snag one in Denver. Not something that anyone has been able to do this postseason until this game. A 111-108 victory. 21-9-4 for Bam, 21-4-9 for Jimmy, 23 for Gabe Vincent. Max Strus bounced back in a big way with 14 points. Kevin Love, only 6 points, 10 boards though. Entered the starting lineup in this one. Interesting shift for Miami lineup-wise. We'll talk about it a little bit later. For the Nuggets, 41 points for Nikola Jokic, only 4 assists, which I think you highlighted during our watch party yesterday. A postseason low for Jokic. 18 points and 10 dimes for Jamal Murray. 11-5 off the bench for Bruce Brown. 12 for Aaron Gordon. Just a fun one for Jeff Green. 9 points on 1 official shot attempt, which is cool. Made a 3, got to the free throw line quite a bit. Some fun stuff. I think for me, my takeaway starts with, it'll be easy to lean on Miami's offense. And there are some fun things that Miami did offensively we'll talk about. And the shooting bounced back in a major way beyond the 3-point arc. I start with Miami's defense. And I also start with a little bit of annoyance with the discussion points around like Miami's defense and what they did in game 2. And I start with the very obvious caveat. This is very anecdotal, just what I see, what I've heard like on my timeline and stuff. So I'm not pretending like this is just the broader conversation. But like it felt like a lot of folks saw Jokic got 14 assists in game 1, finals debut record, all the good stuff. 14 assists in game 1. 4 assists in game 2. Therefore, Miami just stopped sending help towards Jokic. It's just a one-on-one fest. We are going to make him a scorer. And that was the big shift for Miami. And it's just like, earnestly, do we not remember how Miami defended Jokic in game 1? Like, it wasn't like they were just tossing 2 to him all the time. And he's just picking Miami apart. And that's where the assist came from. It was, hey, Gabe Vincent is guarding Aaron Gordon. Let me toss it to Aaron Gordon. Hey, Gabe Vincent is on Michael Porter Jr. now. I'm going to toss the ball to him. It was 14 assists, 17 potential assists in game 1. Hey, let's flow out of horns. Gabe Vincent is trying to face guard Jamal Murray. He cuts back door. Let me hit him. Let's flow out of horns again. Here's Aaron Gordon trying to screen for Jamal Murray. Miami doesn't want to switch. Here's a dunk for Jamal Murray. Hey, let's flow out of horns again. Empty side handoff for KCP. Mid-range pull-up. It wasn't Miami just tossing 2 or 3 people at Jokic and he picked them apart. Like, it was very much playing out of the flow. It was a lot of Jokic one-on-one. If there's a mid shooter next to him, we'll dig if we can. But it was largely bigs do your best against Jokic. And that carried over in game 2. Like, if there was a shift for a star from Miami, it felt like they shifted to Jamal Murray more. Like, part of Kevin Love entering the starting lineup was, yeah, I wonder where we heard this before. But part of putting Kevin Love in the starting lineup, 1, you get more size in the front court. But 2, Jimmy Butler is no longer on Aaron Gordon. Now he's on Jamal Murray. You get your best perimeter defender on Jamal Murray. In general, you put more length on him. That slows some stuff down. It felt like, and maybe for me, it's just, I don't like the framing of how the conversation was versus the conversation itself. Because if you are putting more length on Jamal Murray, if you are slowing him down, that does eliminate some of the openings that Jokic has in terms of assist opportunities, if you're able to lock in a little bit more there. So it does kind of tie back into Jokic has to beat us in this certain way. But for me, it felt like it was Miami did something different against Jokic. And like that really wasn't the case for me. So I guess
that's where you started. And you mad at somebody. The hashtag is Big Mad.
I'm not mad.
No, you sound like Spo right at that press conference. I don't want to talk about it. We'll circle back to the untrade die, by the way. I think that it's a byproduct of just a lot of things. That game 2 was a lot of different things. It was almost like 3 or 4 different games mixed in one. I think with Jokic, part of that is Miami doing a better job against Denver's movement. And part of them doing a better job against Denver's movement is having Jimmy Butler on Jamal Murray, being able to be more physical, being able to be more active, fight through more stuff. Kevin Love on Aaron Gordon. Simplified job for Kevin Love, especially in this game as far as, hey, he's here. I know when I need to help. I know when I need to rotate. Heck, one of the times that Jokic did get one of the assists, it was a tremendous play where he attacks, sees Kevin Love digging because Aaron Gordon's in the right corner. And he says, oh, cool, you're doing that? I'll be at another shimmy and then throw it over my head. So he had some incredible passes. I just think Miami did a good job, a better job defensively of trying to muck things up. And Jokic also had it going as a scorer. So those type of things happen. But what a fun contest. Like, again, yes. I think of how many different things happened. Miami came out, set that tone right out the gate. We are here, ready to go. Denver cut that lead right before the end of the quarter, and then their bench went off. Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green switching, turned defense to offense. Looks like a whole different game. Miami hangs around. Miami hangs around. Miami hangs around. Nikola Jokic scores 18 points in the third quarter. And it's like, oh, buddy. They answered the bell again in a different way.
Answered the sale is what he did in the third quarter.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead.
And then we get to the fourth quarter, and this is the moment, and there's plenty to talk about, but this is the one that stuck out to me the most. Denver has that huge quarter from Jokic. They are up, 83-75. Coach Michael Malone is doing the start of the fourth quarter interview. You know, I think we're going to need the most important defensive quarter that we've had all season long. And that leads into Duncan Robinson scoring 8 points in a minute and 10 seconds. And from there, the game, it was fight night. It was time to go. I can't think of a worse way for this Denver team to lose. And I don't mean like it was their worst loss ever. But to have a game full of defensive breakdowns for that coach in that moment, you could tell by their reaction post-game. I was kind of shocked. He was upset. They was upset.
Jeff Green was very upset.
They were upset. They're talking about effort. I'm like, whoa. Let's bring it down a little bit.
You suffer one home loss in the postseason. And now you lost by 3. It'd be one thing if that Duncan Robinson run sparked the 24-6 run and Miami wins 121-103. And it's like, okay. Y'all just got tossed over the top rope, and that's a nasty way to lose your first game. But, like, Jamal Murray had a chance to tie the game in the last possession. It didn't feel like it was, like, an awful loss for Denver, but to your point, like, I do understand the frustration. I guess I think it was less effort for me and just more execution. Like, very early in that first quarter, Jimmy Butler hunting for some switches, hunting for some matchups. And Miami just getting slip after slip after slip. And it's like, okay, well, you got to tighten that stuff up. And I don't know if that's they ain't trying hard versus they're just moving a little slow here or they're just reacting slowly. They got to shape that up. And it did feel like that got better as the game went on. And you really saw it pop, as you mentioned, that second quarter stretch when you go to the bench. Aaron Gordon, Jeff Green in the front court, you're seeing the switching. And Miami's offense died. In terms of what they were looking for, it didn't feel like the tempo was great. Didn't feel like they had much of a direction. And then you got the live ball turnovers. And that is the one thing that Miami has many like non-negotiables in theory in this series. Live ball turnovers has to be top of the list. Mm-hmm. We can't turn it over, period. But if we are, it needs to be we tossed the ball out of bounds. It was an offensive foul. It was a moving screen. Give you those if you're going to turn it over against this Denver team. If it is live ball, Denver is shredding you. And we talked about this after game 1, where I think 11% of Denver's possessions came in transition, which is a low number. And I felt like it was lower than what it really was, just because Miami did a great job of getting back. They got matched up, but they also got matched up into some cross matches. And Denver was just able to play out of the half court from there against matchups they already liked. So they didn't technically run a lot, but they got good stuff early. And in this one, in that first half, their transition frequency rate was over 20% of their possessions. And a lot of that was from that second quarter. It was like, okay, Miami cannot win like that, period. Mm-hmm. They can shoot 60% from three. Mm-hmm. They're not winning if that is where Denver is in transition. And that settled in the second half. They wound up around 15% of their possession in transition, which is higher than game one, but still within that range where it's like, okay, this is kind of like the line here. It's got to be 15% or lower for us to really make this as much of a mud fight as it can be. Because Denver still scored relatively well in the half court in this one. Offensive rating over 100 in the half court per cleaning the glass, but it wasn't their elite mark. But yeah, like that really stood out. But I'm with you. Like, I feel like Miami's, their attention to the off-ball stuff was a lot better. I feel like their switches and stuff were a lot better. For Denver defensively, again, it felt more attention to detail with some of the early switching. And then from there, it's just Miami just got a lot more comfortable against the pockets that they had. And I remember talking about this in my thread after game one, where it's like, okay, we know Denver wants a level of scheme versatility or a level of nuance with Jokic when he's defending pick and rolls. They want him to be able to operate at the level. They want him to be in the drop. And so my question on the rewatch was, okay, who is he coming up to the level against? And who is he in a drop against? And from there, what does the help look like? And so in game one, if Max Strus had the ball in a pick and roll or a handoff, Jokic is coming up to the level. If Duncan Robinson has the ball in the handoff, he is coming up to the level. And Miami was able to find some stuff there. Gabe Vincent mostly got dropped. Kyle Lowry mostly got dropped in that game one. And it felt like Miami said, okay, bet. If this is what we're getting, let's play with this. Let's run a little bit more double pick and roll or double drag. Let's make sure we have the side empty a little bit more. If Jimmy is still seeing drop, let's see what we can do with the help here. And something that you pointed out during our thread was Jimmy starting to manipulate some of that nail help. Like, okay, if you're peeling in over early, how about I just wait and let's kick it out and now we can drive behind the help, as opposed to what we've seen earlier in the postseason where Miami's just cutting behind that nail help. Like, okay, let's let these guys make some plays. Let's do something different there. So I think Miami did a really good job of manipulating Denver's help in game two. Like, that popped more than, obviously the three-point shooting should start. But process-wise, that is the thing that really popped for Miami's offense. I think that really helped them out.
I think it started from the top. I think for me, it was less about effort from Denver and more about just breakdowns combined with Miami being able to hit the right notes and adjust to what Denver showed in game one. And to me, it started with, hey, here are these guard screens. Are you guys ready for them? Mm-hmm. How does Max Strus get that open early? Coming off a stagger, now he's letting it fly. Aaron Gordon's involved. Or, hey, Jamal Murray, come over here. Are you guys switching? Are you hedging? Any sort of breakdown, we have an empty corner. He can slip. He can get a shot. And from there, as you mentioned, they took what Denver was doing with their help. So if Jokic is going to be in a drop, their weak side is going to pull over early, show help at the nail, show bodies. And you saw early Miami was able to make those plays, make a quick pass, and attack the closeouts. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing here. Like, we think about Denver's defense. We talk about Jokic. We circled around him. The biggest thing as far as getting to Denver's defense is getting them in rotation and attacking those closeouts, attacking that help. Once you are able to keep that advantage and keep them moving, it gets tough. Let's go back to the Phoenix series. Part of the success they had was not just the shot making from their top two. It was when they were able to, you're helping kick three, kick drive. Now you have to recover again. Mm-hmm. So whether it's at the level with its drop, they need their help to be loaded in. And I think Miami just did a really good job, as you mentioned, of screening in different areas, going empty corner, just moving things around to where Denver couldn't necessarily put their feet in. But then it blends to the automatics. And I think this is the bigger part for me. Miami was able to tap into a lot of different things in this game. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler may not have had the most impressive stat line, but he had a comfort to him. And he was able to make big shots when he could. Max Strus, much more comfortable. Gabe Vincent, much more comfortable. Kyle Lowry, much more comfortable. And the reason that's important is not just the pull-ups, but if we know, hey, this is going to be a drop, or you're going to be at the level, I know what my read is. I either have this shot, and we saw it from Lowry and Vincent different times, or I can dribble, I can engage, I can hold this space, I can hold your help. I have the pocket to bam if I need it. But we saw Gabe Vincent. Hey, you want to keep this pick and roll on the side? Cool. I'm going to take the space, and now I'm going to finish. Mm-hmm. So now you have all of that going for Miami, and it makes it tricky. Folks, compare that second quarter where they tried to get Duncan Robinson loose, and Denver was switching everything and getting steals, to the fourth quarter where they didn't know what they wanted to do with Duncan Robinson. So now he curls in action. It's an open three for, I think, Gabe Vincent. Then the next time they don't switch it, it's a layup for Duncan Robinson. It's like, whoa, Denver, you got to take something off the table.
Yeah. They were just spamming that early fourth. It was a lot of fun to watch. It's just a big Duncan Robinson stretch. And again, you think about, I guess it's just the general theme with this Heat team. Like, man, look at where they were earlier this year versus where they are now. Like, Duncan Robinson, largely out of the rotation for large portions of this season. Got back in, couldn't knock down shots. And in this postseason run, the handoffs with Bam have been back. The pick and rolls and early slip passes with Bam have been back. We just saw the run he had early in the fourth quarter in game 2. It's just nice to see him finding his rhythm and hitting people with stink faces, heading back to the sidelines. Like, he is really feeling himself. We got the Hulk Hogan ear cup into the stank face in like a 3-game stretch. And I'm just like, It's nice to see the confidence from Duncan Robinson. It's funny sometimes, but it's nice to see the confidence for him.
Well, I'll go free throw adjacent. Which one do you choose?
Oh boy. Am I able to reclaim the ear cup? Is that how that works?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess in that case, it's got to be the stank face. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just easy. As a musician, like, I just naturally have that sometimes. Mm-hmm. But for basketball, like, the ear cup just kind of like, yeah. You were talking and now you're not. What's going on here? But to the Jimmy Butler point, I feel like I'm echoing what I said about Bam in the first game. Like, man, I really like the aggression from him. Jimmy, they still felt like there were some pockets where he could have been a little bit more aggressive as a scorer on some of the drives. But one, it was just nice to see him drive again. 8 drives in game 1, up to 19 in game 2. Miami well over 1 point per possession on those drive possessions. They needed that. They needed him to puncture the paint. They need him to score steal as well, and he was able to get some tough buckets, get to the free throw line as well. But those kickouts were very important. That led to a lot of the 9 assists that he had in that game. And just with the general comfort level of Miami's ball handling against Jokic in particular. 42 picks defended for Jokic in game 2. Nearly 1.3 points per possession on those trips. That was at 0.78 in game 1. And naturally in game 1, again, Miami got looks that they missed. So that doesn't completely speak to the quality. But such a drastic drop isn't just the shot making. There was a level of decisiveness, again, outside of that second quarter when Jokic wasn't on the floor and they were switching a bunch. But with him on, there was a level of decisiveness to, okay, we know if this guy's involved in the action, we know if we run this particular action, we know if we run it with this particular spacing, we know we're getting Jokic in this coverage, and then we can play out of that. And I do wonder, bouncing off of your point about Denver's reaction after the game, how much of this is we have to execute, play better / play harder versus we may need to do something different. And I think heading in for game 3, that's kind of where my eye is going to be. Does Denver do anything differently or do they just do it better?
I would imagine they just look to do it better in this game. I think they have worked this playoff run to make sure their defense holds up, to mix different coverages in, to not just lean on at the level, to be able to go with both at different times based on personnel. So I think for them, it's just, hey, we need to be better. We need to be more prepared for some of this weak side movement that we're going to see. Mm-hmm. Part of what Jimmy Butler did was the drive knowing, hey, I'm going to force help and I'm going to hold help. So he's got a really tricky line to navigate because we know they need him to be able to cycle through matchups and score, but he also delivers so much pressure with his size and his ability to get in the paint and hold Denver's defense in. So you'll see so many drives in that game where, hey, he might reject the pick and roll to where Denver's loaded up. I think there was a play, I want to say the second half, where he's ready, pick and roll, Denver's defense is all set. He just rejects. And now 4 guys are still staring at him. And now he can drive and kick. So he has to navigate that correctly. But I think for Denver, again, it was just a little bit of everything. A little bit of just uncertainty as far as where the pick and roll was being set. And then you saw Miami start to blend in some of that weak side movement to where you're not sure who's cutting, you're not sure who's holding. So it dings your help a little bit, just really subtly. It wears on you as the game goes on. And I think one of the bigger things beyond just Jimmy, when you look at the pick and roll, we talk about the comfort of their guards. Bam Adebayo got to be a roller.
Like a full-blown roller.
Yeah. Not just a short roller, but a roller. And I go back to, I think it was the fourth quarter, he got that roll. Michael Porter Jr. wasn't pulled in early. That was at the end of a really good defensive possession for Denver. They switched everything, mucked everything up. They were good to go. Now Miami taps pick and roll. Now Bam gets a dunk. Denver can't have that.
Yeah.
They can't have that. They have to be able to take something off the plate. They have to be able to make Miami a little less comfortable, a little less decisive, keep them in that pocket.
Yeah, it was fun watching some of the Bam rolls. It's like, man, because there was the bucket where he got a roll opportunity, finish over Aaron Gordon. I was like, this is the slight adjustment I want to see from Bam in game 2 compared to game 1. Because again, in game 1, it felt like the appropriate level of aggression / decisiveness from Bam. I am rolling. There's 2 to the ball here. I am getting the pocket. I am going up. Or y'all are meeting me on the catch. I am making the kick. I did not feel like Bam had a bad game or anything like that. We shouldn't be poo-pooing on the aggression, the shot attempts, etc. The one quibble I had was, depending on who the primary helper is, if Denver's putting 2 to the ball. If that help is smaller, Bam, I would like to see you take the extra dribble, really force the issue at the rim. And like there were a couple of those where, particularly in the fourth quarter, where it's a Jimmy Bam pick and roll, Bam gets the roll, or it was, I want to say it was Gabe Vincent. Bam, pick and roll. Jimmy was in the right corner. This was the play that Jimmy drove. Aaron Gordon got the and one on the floater. And it was like, even on that possession, Bam gets the short roll opportunity, takes 2 dribbles, and then makes the kick to Jimmy. I was like, okay, it's subtle, but there's a level of intention of getting a little bit deeper and holding the help a little bit more. And now Jimmy gets to attack Aaron Gordon, pump, drive, gets the floater to go. And then late in that fourth quarter, as Denver was making their comeback, Miami flows into action, Bam slips in the open space. KCP is the late helper. Bam takes that extra dribble, gets into the paint, gets near the restricted area, pump fake, draws a shooting foul on KCP. And it's like, that's what you want to see. Depending on who it is, get deeper in there, really strain out Denver's help. Because as you said, the key to beating this Denver defense is going to be dinging the help. Getting them in rotation, really punishing those rotations. And I think Miami and Bam in particular did a really good job of that. It's been a good Bam series so far. It's 2 games, so like only the sample size is only what it is right now. But he is putting in work against Jokic. He's not winning all of those fights because Jokic is insane. But between the fronting, the contesting, the chasing that he's having to do off ball defensively, and to still be able to set as many screens as he does, make as many short roll and just roll decisions as he's making so far through 2 games, the playmaking has been there. This has been really good Bam stuff. If you have tried to get rid of any of your Bam stock based on like shots not falling from or whatever in the Boston series, like, I hope you're shaking your head at what Bam's doing the first 2 games. He's been really good. He deserves his flowers.
He does. I do think that this has been set up for him to have some success. We talked about the rhythm that he could find against Denver's defense. The one thing I'm intrigued about, whether it's him, whether it's Jimmy, who's going to take the reins against the non-Jokic lineup? Yeah. Against the Denver lineup where they're switching. Can Bam have an impact against that lineup? Because I felt like in the second quarter he was out there. I was like, okay, well, remember the Boston series. Like, it's switching. Let's see if you guys can tap back into that. And they didn't hit those notes, but it's not like it's more nitpicky. Your Bam point made me think about Miami's defense and the effort that he puts against Jokic. It's been a really fun midi battle to watch Bam work his tail off to try and deny Jokic's catches, and Jokic just defaulting to cool. I am now screening you, Bam. What are you going to do about it, Miami? Mm-hmm. But I think the key, Jimmy Butler on Jamal and Kevin Love being back there helps Miami's defense. So I want to see how Denver adjusts there. Because part of the issue in game 1 was, and we still saw some of it in game 2, Bam's engaged with Jokic. Bam's fight with Jokic. Jokic screens Bam, whichever way it is. And now Denver's able to turn the corner off that. But if Jimmy's able to navigate some of these actions and give Bam an alleyway or an extra heartbeat, or, hey, we could actually switch this if you're in trouble. And knowing, hey, I can still be aggressive because if you throw it over the top, it's Kevin Love there on the catch. Mm-hmm. Not always an automatic guaranteed like stop, but still, I have a little bit more wiggle room to do this, knowing what's behind me. So how does Denver kind of tweak their offense to get back to their movement, to get back to getting Miami to have to rotate? Yeah.
And I think if Miami's going to keep Kevin Love in the starting lineup for Denver, I think it was opening possession of game 2. It's Jokic Gordon pick and roll. Kevin Love stays attached to Aaron Gordon. Jokic gets a layup and he misses it. I was like, oh, they're going after this early. They are about to make Kevin Love in the starting lineup untenable. Oh no. How many more times do you think they went Jokic Gordon?
Maybe one more time.
They finished with 4 total.
4?
So 3 more times. That does not feel like enough with that particular gambit. Like, again, you don't want to just turn your entire offense into Jokic handle and pick and roll. It should be a fun wrinkle more so than the diet. But that felt low, considering, like, okay, if Bam and Love are involved in the action and you're empty in the corner like Denver normally does in that setup, okay, who's behind that? Who can help behind it? Like, that just feels like the purest version of 2-on-2 you're going to get with Jokic. Those should be some easy ones for them to poke at. And I guess the other only thing I'll say, and that'll kind of flow into a question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'll start with the question. How did you feel about Denver against Miami zone in this one compared to game 1?
Depends on which half you're talking about. I thought the first half, the zone didn't look great for Miami. I thought Denver did a really good job of moving the ball, moving their bodies, distorting matchups. So I thought they hit the notes they needed to. In the second half, in the fourth quarter, when Miami sprinkled it in, I thought you saw a clear emphasis. Like, I'm not going to do, was it a 3-2? Was it a 1-3-1? I'm not doing that today. Have a blast. Conceptually, game 1, we saw them trying to figure out, how do we take Jokic away while also staying matched up? And some of the things that opened up as far as, oh, wait, there's 2 on the ball here. Oh, no, we're in trouble. Especially in that fourth quarter, it felt like Miami was much more decisive with, hey, one of y'all make sure he does not catch it at the elbow. You work and we'll figure the rest of this out. But that is where you are at. And if he sets a screen, then now you are the person that's going to take away Jokic and not let him catch. That is your job. And I thought it opened things up for Denver. I thought Jamal Murray had a couple nice drives. I think he finished one, missed one. But it did take them out of rhythm a little bit. And I think that's just as important to Denver's offense for Miami more than anything else. And again, Miami being able to sprinkle the zone in is huge. Mm-hmm. Just having that on the table, especially if Jokic is still on the floor, being able to mix that in, I think that's a big thing. I think that's something Denver has to be able to take off the table.
I got you. See, this is why I asked, because those were my thoughts heading into, like, going over some stuff this morning for the pod. And it's like, second quarter didn't really feel great. You think the non-Jokic minutes are when you hammer it, and it felt like Denver was able to get some good stuff. That's how I felt watching live. And then the fourth quarter, like, okay, they seem to be more intent, and this is something that you pointed out live during the watch party. And so when I rewatched, it's like, man, Steve is really good at this. I was like, okay, they're really intent on just keeping a body on Jokic, making the touches good. So from there, one, just on the actual numbers front, 1.3 points per possession against Miami zone for Denver in game 2, which was better than it was in game 1. I was like, that doesn't feel, okay, interesting. 1.2 points per possession with Jokic on the floor, as opposed to the, I think, 0.91 in game 1. It's like, well, okay, cool. And so I go back through the zone possessions from there, and I look at that second quarter stretch, and the 4 chances, I would say, early in the second quarter. Murray tries to fit a pass into Aaron Gordon, gets knocked out of bounds, so nothing on that. The first score was Denver moving the ball around the lot, Miami staying matched up. Christian Brown, they try to throw a pass to him, he bobbles it, hits a one-legged fadeaway over Bam. And I was like, okay, that's points on the board, but also, I think they're okay with that. Next trip, swinging the ball around the lot, Miami doing their best to stay matched up. Aaron Gordon gets a corner 3, and he knocks it down. It's like, well, you don't want to give up threes, but if you're cycling through what we are okay with giving up, that feels like something Miami is okay with giving up. And that came with, I think, 6 or 7 on the shot clock. I was like, all right. Next trip down, they swing the ball around a little bit. Bruce Brown takes a contested 3 over Haywood Highsmith. He was helping it to nail. He gets back out, contests the shot, and it's a miss. And so zoom out, and I think that's, if you exclude the pass where the ball gets deflected, it's 5 points on 3 possessions, so it's like 1.7 points per possession. Like, wow, that's an insane number. That is high. You go back through, and it's like, well, I think you just got to tip your cap on some of this. Like, that's just like, okay, we worked. Christian Brown scores over Bam, sure. Aaron Gordon hits a 3, sure. Bruce Brown wants to take a contested 3 over Haywood Highsmith, sure. Going through the fourth quarter possessions, and this is what brought me to, like, my original question I had for you. We were going through a finals preview breakdown before the series, and we're laughing at how Jokic just breaks things up early in zone. I don't understand why Denver doesn't have him bringing the ball up the floor in the fourth quarter. The top of Miami's zone is small. You can just post up a matchup and get where you want to go. And we saw this during the regular season series, where Jokic either on that baseline play where they inbounded to him, he posts up Jimmy, he turns this lob to Aaron Gordon. We talked about that play in the regular season. Just bringing the ball up, let me post up. It was like Tyler Herro at that point because he was healthy, which I guess we do have to talk about Tyler Herro a little bit. He's coming back in game 3. But I don't understand why they just don't let Jokic bring the ball up the floor, post up a matchup, get into the middle early, instead of allowing Miami to stay matched up with the other guards. Jokic tries to flow within the middle. They just keep a body on to make the catch tough. That has to be an adjustment against Miami's zone heading into game 3. Let Jokic do it early. Let him bust the zone.
I imagine we will see more of that. I think they'll be a little bit more decisive about that. Now, here's the thing. Just looking back real quick as you were talking, the closest they got in that fourth, just off top of my head, and I could be wrong, Jimmy Butler was on Jokic. And so he said, nah, cool, I got this. Y'all figure the rest of this out. And that ties to late in that fourth quarter when Jimmy was just guarding Jokic. And so we talk about Jimmy on Jamal, but Jimmy on Jokic means, hey, that little two-man game, that's a switch.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamal didn't care, hit a couple threes. But if Miami can tilt it that way and have Bam helping off Aaron Gordon, what does that do?
It can muck some stuff up, especially within the zone, where like even if Aaron Gordon ends up spacing out to the corner, again, I mentioned the second quarter position where he hits one, if it's that, like you're keeping Bam close to the basket either way. And so if you're able to have the best of both worlds, we keep a body on Jokic. If they do try to go pick and roll against the zone, we can just stay matched up or just switch that and it's fine. Or if the ball does find Aaron Gordon, now he's just a jump shooter here versus Murray or Jokic doing anything. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. Like one of the possessions I laughed at was one of those zone possessions where it was the 3 that Jamal Murray ends up hitting off the offensive rebound. Mm-hmm. Where Miami does their best to stay matched up. It's just a small guy on Jokic. Ball kicked, I think he kicked it out to KCP. He misses. It is Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin fighting for their lives against Jokic on the box out. Mm-hmm. Bam boxes Aaron Gordon out of bounds. And Jokic is like, well, I'm just bigger than both of you, actually. Let me just grab this ball real quick, kick to Jamal Murray, knocks down the 3. It's like, well, it's kind of tough to rebound in the zone. It's very tough when the matchups are distorted to that degree.
Hey, and I think just the fact that Miami was able to distort things played such a key role. Because think about that. I'm going back to that play you're talking about right now. Bruce Brown was wide open that entire possession. Because they basically switched the first pick and roll. Jimmy's on Jamal. Caleb Martin's fighting for his life. Gabe Vincent's like, I got your back. And Bruce Brown's literally sitting there with his hands like this. Like, hey.
If you want.
So those are little things I think Denver can exploit next game. But that's part of the magic of what Miami does and why you can't let them get so comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like necessarily a series shifting type of win. I was going to save my question that I normally ask you.
I see.
But it did feel like, hey, no, we absolutely have a way to win this series. It's on Denver to take something off the table. Because if you're telling me Miami's going to be able to sprinkle zone in the fourth and then just go to, hey, Jimmy Bam, side pick and roll, empty corner, let's play out of it, it's a different result. It becomes a different game. The things you could live with, tougher to live with in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And to that point, like you can't let the Jimmy Bam combo get comfortable, period. And again, this speaks to how well Bam is playing. Jimmy Butler being more aggressive, driving more, just reading the help a lot better. The Jimmy Bam pick and roll, talked about it after game 1, 10 picks, 0.5 points per possession in game 1, which is awful in terms of the efficiency. The volume felt low. Basically doubled it on both fronts in game 2. 22 reps in game 2 compared to 10 in game 1. 1.16 points per possession compared to that 0.5 number in game 1. And again, we did see, I think, literally 2 switches from Jokic in this game. Again, Denver does not want to turn that into a late switch. This is why it is dropped, but depending on who's spaced where, it's help in the middle of the floor, and it's also someone is rotating behind Jokic as he's in that drop as well, often MPJ. They do not want Jokic to end up on an island against Jimmy Butler. And so if Miami's able to find pockets with that duo, knowing that Denver is not going to switch if they don't have to, if they're able to navigate those gaps and just penalize Denver for that, it gets tough. It gets tough. Because among like star duos, like that feels like one of the pairings where, okay, we can switch against this. We can take stuff off the table. If Jimmy's taking pull-up jumpers, then fine. If Bam has a post-up against a smaller guy, we're fine with that. Like among the top duos in the NBA, like that feels like the one where like, okay, have at it. If they're just seeing drop all the time, and now Jimmy's getting comfortable, and if you do try to bring two to the ball, Bam is comfortable, that just changes the dynamic of what they do. And then considering the way that Miami moves off of that, both in terms of just like their relocations and cuts, and just the general ability that their off-ball guys have. Those roles, Gabe Vincent not afraid, he will knock down shots. Max Strus can knock down shots. Duncan Robinson can knock down shots. Kyle Lowry can knock down shots. It becomes a lot different. Not impossible for Denver to navigate. They just won game one. But it becomes a lot different. It surely isn't the Miami's getting swept, Miami and losing in 5. It's not going to be close, whatever. We said it before the series. Miami has avenues. They have pockets to attack. Denver can work to take away some of those. They can't take away literally all of them. Miami just has to hammer it. And in game 2, they felt a lot more comfortable. They felt more decisive. They felt more aggressive. And more importantly, clean the glass takes away like full court heaves and stuff like that. 17 of 34 from 3 on non-heave threes. That is 50%. Denver, I think, shot 42% on those looks, which is also a really good percentage. But Miami took more threes than Denver did. They made more threes than Denver did. And as I said in the preview, like Miami can math this thing to a degree because they generally just take more threes than Denver does. So those are kind of the margins that they're playing with. And again, I just zoom out and say, this is a really fun series. This is a really fun matchup to watch and dig through and then rewatch and pick out stuff. It's just fun. This is what a finals is supposed to be, man. It's supposed to be a chess match.
Very fun. Now I'm going to ask you the Steve question.
Okay.
Who feels better going into game 3? Denver or Miami? I'll give you a second for that to land. Because the more we talk about it, the more we discuss, I can see it from both sides. Like, yeah, it stinks that you lost at home if you're Denver. You still shot 52%. You still had a level of success against their zone. You still played well offensively. You're right there. Jokic still has a lot of problems. Like, this isn't a Miami has solved everything defensively type of win.
No.
But then I look at what Miami did and how important it was and their blend and going back to the Boston series, the Milwaukee series. When they have that going, it's now a whole different thing. The threes you brought up is huge. So again, how much of this just comes down to Miami made the shots they needed to make. And Miami took care of the ball. Miami got to the free throw line. Like, if they're going to have all this offensively, we know what they can do. But now my head kind of ties back to that Boston series. And it's like, well, what happens if one of these things are off? Now, what do you do? Because if your offense isn't going and Denver's able to roll in transition, how much wiggle room do you have? So who do you think feels better?
I feel like just based on who the coaches are, the answer is just no. Like that might be the earnest answer because I agree with you. Like Denver has to feel like, man, our defense wasn't as locked in as we needed it to be. Jamal Murray, like taken off the table is strong based on what he was still able to generate and the assist in particular. But it wasn't, second half of the Lakers series Jamal Murray, or it wasn't Phoenix series Jamal Murray where he's just all over the place. It was a 3-point game with a chance to tie still, if you're Denver. And this is while playing through stuff. And like normally, I guess just going with the Miami shot making thing. Miami has won when they've shot extremely well from 3, which is very dull analysis. My apologies, stick with me. But like they've won when they've drained a ridiculous amount of 3s. But like in those games, it's been we're shooting this and you are also not knocking down shots. So it's interesting to me that Miami did shoot ridiculously well from 3. Denver did too. Because very quietly, Denver did not shoot well from 3 in game 1 and still was able to get the W. And so the fact that they shot much better from 3 and Miami just outshot them. Like, I can understand more room with, okay, well, shoot, man. If Miami shoots 43% from three or 44% from three, and we keep our level, like, we probably still win that game. So then if you're Miami, you got more comfortable against those pockets against Denver's defense. And we haven't had the Jimmy game yet. Which, to that point, I don't know if we get the Jimmy game just based on like where the ankle is. But they won one in Denver without getting a Jimmy game. And as important as the shot making was for Max Strus, it sounds wild to say only four, but like he only made 4 threes. This wasn't the Chicago play-in game where that man just could not miss and he bombed away.
See, folks, you found the hack to the dunker spot.
Just asking good questions and just be in shambles for 2 minutes. I think it's.
Yeah, see?
I don't like this. Maybe the answer is yes. No, I think the answer is probably Denver still, because at the end of the day, they do still have Jokic buttons to press. And it's so weird that the framing of like, well, this is the type of Jokic game that we want to have, and it's Jokic with 41. Just wild how good he is. But they still have Jokic buttons to press. And, this is the stat I want to drop like during my rant. 18 post-ups through 2 games for Nikola Jokic via Second Spectrum. How many times do you think he's been doubled?
4 times?
2.
Oh, I'm never getting more of those.
2 double teams logged. And now, obvious caveat, like parsing through what's a double versus like what's a dig and what's like helping and getting back out or whatever. But 2 logged double teams on post-ups for Jokic so far. I do wonder at what point, again, to my zone point, but I guess you can zoom it out. When does Denver just let Jokic bring the ball up more? Like, all right, cool. I'll bring it up the right side of the floor. Y'all clearing space. I'm just going to walk into a post-up now. Do something about it. Because Bam has been fighting. Again, he hasn't won a lot of those battles. Cody Zeller sure as heck hasn't won those battles against Jokic. I don't know how much Haywood Highsmith we see in Game 3. But I would imagine he's not going to have a bunch of fun trying to deal with Jokic in that kind of setup. If they know they're not getting doubles, there are some avenues here.
And also, this is a game where Michael Porter Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope combined to go 3 for, 12 from the field?
Can we pause there for a brief moment? A very brief moment.
Where are you going here?
As much as I have been championing the growth of Michael Porter Jr. throughout this season, throughout this postseason, I do still, like, I don't not believe it anymore. He has grown. He has played well throughout this postseason. Game 2 was bad for Michael Porter Jr. And it goes beyond not knocking down the shots. He hasn't made threes in this series, really. He hasn't shot well from 3, rather. But, dog, some of the decision-making offensively, the possession against Kevin Love, he ends up scoring on it. But, buddy, if you can't beat Kevin Love off the bounce, I don't know what to do. And then defensively, he was part of those bot switches. As locked in as he has been for most of this postseason/season, in terms of peeling in early with help, it wasn't the best help game for MPJ. One of those things has to clean up in Game 3. At least one. Preferably both from Denver's side. You want him to find his rhythm as a jump shooter. You want him to be better defensively. At least one of those things needs to be true in Game 3. It can't be what it was in Game 2. And where in Game 1, it largely felt like, okay, I still felt pretty good about the defense. The shot just wasn't falling. It was both for him. And then for KCP, who did not shoot well, I would imagine that perks back up. That's fine. And remind me if I'm tripping. Didn't KCP get like the pregame interview during the ESPN pregame section? And talked about how he doesn't feel like he gets enough love for what he did on that championship team. I think that's true, first and foremost. 2, you can't say that and then foul every 3-point shooter in sight. It's got to be one or the other. You can't. They have to be better in Game 3 for Denver to pull out the win. I will put it that way. That's my brief pause. You can continue.
I don't even know where I was at this point now. I wasn't ready for that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's tough. again, if I'm Denver, if we're just better defensively, we give ourselves a better chance. Yeah. If they can clean up the help, they can clean up their closeouts, keep the ball in front. A lot of drives, it felt like, from Miami. So if you clean up the fouls, clean up some of these rotations, take away some of the comfort from Miami, I think you're in a better position. So very interested to see. Is there anything that's standing out to you? Is this Jamal Murray has to do better against Jimmy, or what are you looking forward to in Game 3?
I do think on the Jamal Murray front, I just wonder how much we get hey, let's get Gabe Vincent's man to screen and get Jimmy off and then flow into the action. Like, I feel like that's something that they can poke at a little bit more. Because Jamal Murray did not have fun against Jimmy Butler for most of that matchup. And I cited the drive stats for Jimmy and how that kind of perked up for him. Drives went down for Jamal Murray heading to this game too. Only 13 drives, 0.69 points per possession, not very nice, on any trip featuring a Murray drive. That is the third lowest figure of the postseason for Jamal Murray. That can't stand. And again, it goes back to like the initial conversation about Miami shifting things towards Murray in a way versus it being we're doing something different against Jokic. More size in the front court, you shift Jimmy up to Jamal Murray, and then you also throw in, oh, this is Bruce Brown at the wing. We're also going to send some help at the nail if Bruce Brown is spaced here. They did not allow Jamal Murray to get into an early rhythm. And so maybe it's just that little bit of manipulation of, okay, let's get Gabe Vincent's guy in here. Let's get Max Strus's guy in here. I know Miami will switch this, or they may put 2 on the ball, and maybe we get guys in rotation that way. But maybe just get Jimmy away and then flow for Jamal. Maybe that helps. And then it's just to tighten up defensively. Like, you've already hit on that, so I won't hang too much longer on that one. On the Miami side, though, I guess we do have one more question to dig into. There were some rumblings that maybe Tyler Herro comes back for Game 2. He was ruled out for Game 2. The target date was Game 3 initially, reported by ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. If Tyler Herro is back in Game 3, 1, how much rope are you giving him in Game 3? And 2, how much does it help Miami versus help Denver in terms of matchup hunting? How do you balance that portion out?
I mean, for me, I would probably say Game 4.
Okay.
Take your time, young man. Take your time. He gives him a boost to be able to. I assume he would come off the bench, so give him a few minutes there. Maybe he can help that second unit and add some scoring punch there. Maybe he can get some pull-ups against Jokic. I think he can have an impact offensively. Defensively, there is the concern. It could become here, but how many people are you concerned with that with? Basically, Jamal Murray, right? Now, obviously, he needs to hold up defensively as far as the movement, the cutting. There could be an area where he's rusty and just gets beat there, so don't get me wrong. But how much is Denver going to really want to tap that button? I guess would probably be my balance. And how many minutes is Tyler going to play?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like at this point, as good as and talented as he is, he would be a bonus for Miami. Mm-hmm. A year back, let us get these good, 10, 12 minutes. And now you're part of our attack as opposed to we need to feature Tyler and he has to close. I don't think it's that vibe quite yet.
Okay.
And if he's out there in the scenario where he get hurt by Jamal Murray in the 4th, that means he's probably cooking. That's my beat on it right now. So you got to take the good with the bad.
That's fair. That's fair. For me, I just think about how Denver has defended and how Jokic in particular has defended. And I feel like if Tyler Herro comes back, he falls into that Robinson-Strus group where Jokic is at the level, which again isn't a bad thing. You get 2 to the ball, you can play out of that. But if that is the coverage that he gets, 1, that is the coverage that Tyler, if you zoom out what the last 2 or 3 years have been for him, that has been the gambit that he's been trying to work and get better at. When to string it out versus when to make the pass. And if it's a hard trap, can he get out of it? That kind of thing. That's been the coverage that he's really been trying to work towards being better at. So I wonder what the impact looks like there. And then secondarily, if Jokic is at the level, where are those pull-ups coming from Tyler Herro? And so if the boost is we get another guy that gets 2 on the ball, that's not a bad thing. But does Miami need another guy to do that? Or do they need another jump shooter that they are cool with? And if they feel like it's the latter and the shooting as a whole feels more important to their formula to win, that's where I'm like, do we need Tyler in general, but do we need a large dosage of it? And if you are playing the gambit of, okay, let's just keep him on the second unit, he can provide a boost. That's also the lineup where you're seeing the most switching. And you can use Tyler's jump shooting in that regard, knock down contested shots. He won Sixth Man of the Year largely from making those kind of shots. But if you're Denver, and it's like, okay, well, we're switching because we're small. Miami is switching more because they're small. If we can now just get the Tyler matchup, okay, we ain't got to think that much. Not that they don't have to work, because Miami would do some different things. They'll try to load their help where they can. But, okay, we know we're going after him. And I wonder if that simplification outweighs Tyler versus switches, or if he's on the floor at the same time that Jokic is, Tyler with Jokic at the level. And you don't really get the pull-up shooting from him. And so that's kind of where my mind went on second thought. And maybe I hope I'm not like galaxy braining it, but like that's kind of where the logic went for me. I do think he's going to play a role in the series. Like the whole, like, just keep him out for the finals since you got here. Like, I'm not on that train. I think that's a little bit too far. I understand where the thinking comes from, but he's still really good. And the scoring is valuable and the shooting is valuable. So I'm not there, but just based on how Denver has been defending scheme-wise, that's where I'm like, okay, what is the offensive impact? How much does it shift? And does that warrant we're giving Tyler, if he comes back in game 3, by game 5, he's at 32 minutes a game or something. Like, I don't think I can get there with the Herro game. Do you have any closing thoughts on this series or on that game too?
Again, it's just a very fun, big win for Miami. They showed what they can do. Denver's shown what they can do. I just want to keep seeing how this unfolds. And can Denver shake this off and get back to what they do defensively and reestablish momentum? Or has Miami found something as far as, okay, we have our comfort, our guys are comfortable, we know what you're doing defensively, we feel like we can cycle through that and fight just enough to give ourselves a chance. It's going to be very fun to see how this goes down, man.
It is going to be fun indeed. And I guess I just go just a couple of numbers to close things out, just on the shot profile standpoint. It's so funny that we talked about Miami needing to pressure the rim a little bit more, and Jimmy Butler did do that in particular, driving more, whatever. In terms of the actual shots they took, only 13% of their shots came at the rim in game 2, which was lower than their figure in game 1. So that's just funny to look at. But I think they did touch the paint a little bit more in game 2, and that became valuable. And just to clean up the half-court thing, it was an even 100 offensive rating in the half-court for Denver, which is a solid number, but not their world-beating number once again. A 114.3 offensive rating in the half-court for Miami. That is the shooting, very much so. But again, the overall comfort that they saw in the half-court is huge. Denver, they have to get that number down. Or even beyond getting the number down, they have to remove the comfort that Miami saw in that game too. And so we will see what adjustments are made from game 3, or if it's just, hey, we got to play harder, play better. We will see what that looks like. All right, let's shift. I guess while we're on the NBA, we can go NBA news and then close with some W takeaways. A lot of coaching news over the last 3 days. Just interesting to me. Kevin Young agreeing to a $2+ million annual deal to remain with the Suns. He's the highest paid assistant in the NBA right now. I know you have some thoughts. We got Terry Stotts joining Adrian Griffin's staff as an assistant. James Borrego joining Willie Green's staff in New Orleans as associate head coach. Kevin Ollie, who was in the hunt for the Pistons job, joining Jacques Vaughn's staff as an assistant. Sam Cassell leaving Philly, joining Joe Mazzulla's staff in Boston as an assistant. And I guess a whole lot of Boston staffers moved to Houston. That's a whole nother thing. Steven Silas on the Houston front, joining Monty Williams in Detroit as his top assistant. A lot of names, a lot of new faces or old faces in new places. Did any of those names kind of jump off the page for you? Like, wait a minute, that's interesting from over the weekend.
I mean, it's interesting. Always that type of movement. I always pay attention to that kind of stuff. The business is interesting. The big deal for Kevin Young at a time when some people are going to be looking to renew or re-sign is going to make things very interesting. I'm just going to throw it out there real quick. Nice to see some, again, the trend of head coaches joining staffs and bolstering staffs is continuing. So seeing Terry Stotts and James Borrego reinsert themselves back coaching is going to be fun to see. But that's about it. Like, I'm a little surprised Steven Silas jumped right back into it, but hey, I mean, if Monty's going to be there that long, it's not a bad place.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Also, the bit of the Pistons, Rockets fans beefing, ending up with Steven Silas going to Detroit. Kind of funny, but we'll see. I have more thoughts, but you know.
Patreon content?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or, join pregame for Dunker Spot watch parties.
I give it up every now and then.
There you go. Let some of the non-pod thoughts fly. So hop in there. There's your plug. You'll get another one at the end of this podcast. But there you go. I guess the Kevin Young one is interesting just because of how deeply he was into the running for the head coach job. And it's like, well, hey, actually, it's Frank Vogel. It's like, okay. So Phoenix being able to keep him, I would imagine that would have taken a pay bump to convince him to stay. And it seems to be a pretty sizable one. We'll see, it's annual, so we'll see how many years he has on that. Or I guess we won't see how many years he has on that. I don't know if that's going to be reported out. But that was interesting. Sam Cassell in Boston is fun. Steven Silas in Detroit with Monty, I think that's going to be cool. Interesting. You said it was surprising that Steven Silas jumped right back in it. I'm more so surprised that he jumped back in it with another young team. But I wondered if there would have been a playoff team or, if he would have joined the Boston staff. I feel like if he was going to jump into one, it would have been Boston or a team like that. That's already good. Let me add a different voice in here as well, compared to joining Detroit. But what is that? What's up?
Nah, keep going.
Okay. Well, that's where my, I guess, the brow raised. Less surprised, but that's where the brow raised on that one. I'm curious to see what kind of voice Borrego has in New Orleans. I think Borrego did some fun stuff in Charlotte, period. That just, it only mattered to a certain degree based on what the personnel was. I'm not going to go into Borrego rant again, because I just did. The conversation around Borrego just bothered me when that man was out of Charlotte. But curious to see what the vibes are going to be there, what kind of impact he's going to have. Stotts in Milwaukee is interesting. You get another veteran, get a head coach in there. And Terry Stotts was in Milwaukee before, correct? I think I remember that correctly. So interesting return. We'll be ready for the Bucks Blazers revenge games during the regular season. So we will see what that looks like. That's all I had on the coaching front. Did you want to jump back in? Or you want to
no, man. Okay. If you don't just hurry up and talk about the Aces.
All right. Well, I guess I will hurry up and talk about the Aces then. A couple of
cooked. It's cooked, Nekias. No, it's not cooked.
Oh, is this the energy? Okay. Anyway,
no.
The Aces remain the only undefeated team in the W after a pair of road wins over the weekend. Beat the Dream on Friday. Beat the Fever on Sunday. Eked out a couple of wins, in my earnest opinion there. I am keeping my eye on the defense, which sounds wild considering you zoom out on the year. The Aces are both first in offensive and defensive rating right now, but I'm keeping an eye on the defense, particularly what they're doing against empty side pick and rolls. Because the Fever carved them up, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast last week when they faced the Sparks. That first Sparks game, they absolutely got carved up with empty side pick and rolls. And I asked Becky, asked Asia, asked Chelsea, hey, what are y'all seeing on these looks? What's giving you issue here? And Chelsea mentioned the pressure at the point of attack, not being able to stay attached, that's forcing the big to rotate up, and then the help's not keyed in behind that. Asia's it's just kind of trying to figure out who to take away. With a guard like Kelsey Mitchell, you want to be up a little bit higher so she doesn't get going with pull-ups. That opens up stuff on the back end. And Becky's yeah, we just got to clean all of this up because we're just not getting what we need to. So as they face, I think, Connecticut twice this week, Connecticut likes empty in the corner as well. They have some very aggressive guards. Tiffany Hayes having a fun season so far, and teach Heidemann can get busy. Ty Harris can also get busy off the bench. And then obviously your rollers are going to be either Bree Jones or Alyssa Thomas, and they are both very good. So I do wonder what that gamut's going to look like this week for the Aces. And then the other thing that I'm tracking right now is just the integration of Candace Parker right now. Not shooting well from the field as of net, but it's early. The minutes are low, but again, it's early. I go back to that first Sparks game and just how much space they were giving her when she was spaced out on the perimeter. And I was like, that's interesting to me. Because heading into the year, it's wow, the Aces have Candace Parker. She's really freaking good. But one of the points that I made early on was, hey, if Candace is in that spot instead of Kia Stokes, you can't really help off the same way. One, she's willing to shoot and can knock down shots. But two, she can just immediately flow into some handoffs if you pitch it back out to her. There's a lot more utility offensively. And to this point, one, she hasn't shot well from three to start the season. And two, it hasn't felt like a lot of that utility on secondary actions. And so that combined with the way Kia Stokes has started this season and what she's been able to do defensively. She's shown some more comfort switching. The general rim protection is there. What she's done on the glass on both ends has been there. It's not a surprise that the Aces have closed out games with Kia Stokes versus Candace. And so I'm just keeping an eye on how much longer will it take for Candace to really find her rhythm on both ends, or really on the offensive, and how they want to use her. When she's initiating stuff, or if they do go into like a secondary action that go to Candace, can they find the rhythm? And so, like, not pressing the big red panic button or anything like that, but defense is something to keep an eye on with this Aces group as they build chemistry and just how they're integrating Candace. That's where I'm going. Is that fair, or am I just like nitpicking?
I think it's fair. I mean, I think with the Aces, I think defensively, it's just timing. They look really, really good and locked in, but there are moments where they're just holding, whether it's too long on their show, holding too long on their weak side defense, maybe waiting a heartbeat to recover, and they're just getting hurt in those moments. So I think it's an easier cleanup for me. So I think that's just part of the growing pains. But again, you're undefeated while going through that. So I think they're going to be okay. But this is that part of the year. And the W is always a tough league. But darn near every single night, I go back to that group 3 through 8. It's tough. And you can see the Liberty trying to work through things. I think part of it, not just to tie the Aces and Liberty together, you see teams are trying to kind of find their versatility. Aces trying to figure out how many lineups do we have? How many combinations do we have? Liberty trying to figure out how many lineups do we have? Can we go double big? Can we play smaller? Can we navigate it? Liberty had a bad game against Chicago because the defense stopped working, and then offensively they buffered, couldn't overcome it like they did a couple nights earlier against Chicago. You look at a team like the Sky. Do you know which version of the Sky you're going to get, Nekias?
I don't know who's going to be playing for the Sky on any given night. It's the bigger issue, but yeah.
It's the weirdest dynamic because you see their formula no matter who's out there. We're going to play hard. We're going to try hard. We can score. We can defend. We might not do one of those things. The Mystics right there. But it feels like they just kind of got the same issue. Like the defense is great, but offensively, it might be a tough one. We got to figure that out. So that's kind of been the fun part for me. Is there anyone in the middle that's standing out to you? Do you have any clarity on the Wings, Mystics, Sky, Sparks, Liberty, Dreams mashup?
Do I have any clarity? The answer is no. I will give a quick shout out to Lexi Brown, currently averaging career high in points, a little over 14 points per game, shooting 42% from 3 on over 6 attempts so far. 69 points on 58 scoring possessions via synergy to start the year. 1.19 points per possession. That's the 94th percentile. She has been torching to start the year. And not only has she been torching, the way that she's been used has been incredibly fun to watch. It's nice to see Kurt Miller and Lexi Brown reunited. Friend of the program, Mark Schindler, recently wrote an article detailing how Lexi's been used so far. So go read that.
The great Mark Schindler.
One of the great reporters in WNBA. Yes. But no, like they are giving her more pick and roll reps. Like nearly 52% of her possessions are coming via pick and roll. If you're including passes as well, that's easily a career high for her. They're letting her run ball screens. You cannot run drop against Lexi Brown. She will chew up the space, or she will use the space to get into a pull-up 3, and she will knock it down. It's just been fun to watch her get more on-ball reps on top of not just off-ball stuff, but like a different variety of off-ball stuff. Teams are really having trouble keeping track of her. You see that on some of the sideline out-of-bounds plays, some of the baseline out-of-bounds plays. Kurt Miller's moving her around. And like my question heading into the year with the Sparks was more so perimeter-based. Like, number one, okay, what is the wing depth? And then they lost one. I was like, okay, what's the wing depth? And then two, like, okay, how much are you getting from this guard room? Because it's solid, and we'll see whenever Jasmine Thomas makes her season debut. Like, it's solid, but like, is it enough to complement what the bigs are going to do? And the bigs have been in and out with sickness and injury. We still haven't seen Azurá Stevens yet. Nneka Ogwumike's been in and out of the lineup, but she's been really good when she's been on the court. That's been fun. I'm really having a lot of fun watching Shanae. I guess to answer your question, like maybe not clarity, but I'm just enjoying the sparks. Shanae's been really good on both ends of the floor. She's been everywhere defensively. She's taking threes, which is fun, but like the screening's been really good. She's making plays. as a roller, it's just been really fun for the Sparks. So I just want to see them get healthy so then I can get a clearer picture like, okay, how good is this group? Because I already trust the coaching. I trust the versatility conceptually. When everyone's healthy, what do the lineups look like? What can we do there? So I think that's where I land there. On the Liberty front, because you mentioned the lineups, do you like them double big or do you like them smaller?
I like the fact that they can do both.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to play Laney and Thornton together is huge. Like, I just like that in general. Mm-hmm. But being able to have them plus Stewie and only have one big out there, I just think it's good for them to have options as opposed to we have to play two bigs and we have to figure it out from there. To be able to blend that, I think is key for them, not just during the regular season. It also opens up more minutes for their guards and wings, but also in the playoffs. If you find that matchup and, hey, maybe we only can do this, it can buy you some time, or now you can punish teams' second unit lineups or things like that. So I just think it's more good for them to have the option to do it as opposed to, hey, we can only win this way.
Okay. Makes sense. I think that's, I guess, a quick shout out to the Lynx for getting their first win over the Mystics over the weekend. Mystics on the second night of a back-to-back, but no Diamond Miller in that one for the Lynx. Tiffany Mitchell with the game winner very late in the game as the Mystics made a furious comeback late. So quick hat tip to the Lynx. I am still keeping an eye on what the roster is going to be, but it's just been a fun start to the season for Tiffany Mitchell, period. Like we talked about it a little bit after the Toronto preseason game. Like, man, they really trust Tiffany Mitchell. Also, man, they really trust Tiffany Mitchell. Like, it kind of says something about the rest of the roster as well as they're cycling through guards and stuff. But fun start of the season for her. And Nafisa Collier has been very good to start the season. It's just nice to see her back on the court. One of the best players in the W. Easily one of the best players in the W, for that matter. But nice to see her. Are you feeling better about the Wings right now?
Define better.
I guess that answers that. Okay.
Well, I feel like they can score, but I'm a little concerned about depth as far as how many minutes their bench plays. How many different lineups do you have? And then can you last through the season? If offense is your calling card, which it was, well, I think we talked about it last week. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there like, wait, they're averaging this many points a game. They're also giving it right back. Then you play at Washington, you score 74 points. You play at Connecticut, you score 74 points. What do we have then? So now can you win some of these grinded out type games? Or do you need the scoring to carry? Because they're 3-3, right? Mm-hmm. Beat the Dream, beat the Storm, beat the Lynx. Lost to Chicago, lost to Washington, lost to Connecticut. Can they separate? Can they beat, quote unquote, the top teams, so to speak? I think they can compete with them. But if you're looking at a scenario where now, let's say it's Ace's son, now we can't quite beat the Liberty, we can't beat the Mystics, we can't beat the Sky, what's their matchup?
Yeah.
That's where I think it gets tricky for Dallas.
That makes sense. Just a quick news note before I can toss it to you for free throws if you have them. The W just announced not too long ago, Kelsey Mitchell earning the Don Staley Community Leadership Award for her positive impact and dedication to the community. W announced. So congrats to Kelsey Mitchell for all the great work that she's doing. Also just generally very good at basketball, secondary to what the real life impact has been. But she is a baller. She did get the Aces problems over the weekend. I guess the other quick thing I add on the Fever as a whole, Aaliyah Boston's she's really, really good. I would like for her to be able to stay on the floor, though. Like, that's just going to be early rookie stuff, dealing with the speed and physicality. She's often in foul trouble so far. I would imagine that's going to clean up because she's an incredibly smart defender as well. But when she's on the floor, she's just a force on both ends of the floor. Very excited about what she brings to the table and what the Fever are building. Do you have free throws?
I do.
Okay, what you got? I will save my free throws for Thursday. I will load them up.
All right, untrained eye or casual?
Untrained eye for me.
Okay. What's more on site, Luka versus Zubac or Jokic versus Cody Zeller?
I think it's Jokic versus Cody Zeller at this point. Okay. But also, Zubac be trying, man. He gets slandered because Luka still hits step backs over him. That man be working on defense. Give Zubac his respect.
I'm not disrespecting him. Luke is disrespecting him.
No,
every time he sees him. What you want me to do? I'm just watching.
Fair enough.
Power rank these press conferences. Coach Michael Malone post game 2.
Okay.
Spo when asked about making Jokic score, or Giannis being asked if this season was a failure.
Wow. Well, that's a good one. I like the Spo Giannis mashup just because both of them are just completely over the question. Like Spo gives you the eye rub. Giannis looked like he just had to hold himself back with the oh my God, okay. And then goes into his thing with his dear friend Eric Name, tremendous Bucks reporter. I guess I will go. Coach Mike Malone's just in the default. It just has a default level of like frustration with his group. I guess Malone, Giannis, Spo would be where I go.
Okay.
Bars, etc.
Okay. Denver is 0-3 this postseason when Jokic scores 40 or more. Do you think that stat's going to be handled responsibly over the next 2 days?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Better case for most improved player in the W, Jackie Young or Jewel Lloyd?
Jackie Young for me. However, Jewel Lloyd is having a tremendous season. And she is scoring all over the place. I think, 115 points through the first 4 games for her. It's like third most in WNBA history through the first 4. The way that the Storm are using her off the ball, it's been a lot of fun. It's Jackie, though.
Okay. What's stronger, your desire to see Jewel Lloyd on a championship contender or the fact that Jewel Lloyd has been on a championship contender?
Man, I only responded to your reply, but multiple people were like, man, she was already, the Storm were just, I'm just like, you know this, I knew this, so surely that does not mean that I think she has never been a contender before. My point is, I would like to see her on one now, because she's hooping, as opposed to this Storm team that is not going to be a title contender this year. I like seeing good basketball players on good teams. I like seeing good basketball players, period. So, like, I'm not opposed to her sticking around. But at the level she's playing at right now, like, if she was in Washington right now, you think they feel better about their offense? I think so. But.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 2023 Team USA FIBA World Cup team taking shape. We have Tyrese Halliburton, Mikal Bridges, Anthony Edwards, Austin Reeves, Bobby Portis so far. Are you picking this team?
I would like to see what the other rosters are looking like. Also, quick shout out, friend of the program, Tyrese Halliburton, making the squad. Good for him. I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of talent.
No, I meant literally. Are you picking the people for this team?
Oh, that's a tremendous shot. Wow. Can't say that I am. No, okay. I do not have that kind of power.
All right, what's the best center guard combo of all time?
Oh, Lord. I am not doing this. Because wasn't Kuzi and Russell on that list? It just brought me back to the Jalen. Anyway, gosh. It's probably a Laker combo. I'll go Magic Kareem.
Good Euro stuff there, Nekias.
All
right. Better at keeping a job, Frank Vogel or Jeff Jarrett?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Stalkers. I can't do this. Oh.
That's fine. Don't worry. I got one more.
Wow.
What's the better rumor? Kyrie to the Lakers or LeBron to Dallas?
Man, I wasn't even going to address this on the pod. I saw that tweet when it came in. I was like, no, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see it. You know good well that man ain't going to do that. So I guess technically the better rumor is Kyrie to the Lakers. So there's at least a semblance of like feasibility there. No. Get out of my face, man.
So what's more believable? LeBron retiring or LeBron going to Dallas?
Buddy, LeBron retiring.
Okay.
Come on, dog. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dunker Spot. If you have not already, please subscribe to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us. You can follow me on Twitter at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on Twitter at SteveJones20. Join the Dunker Spot community on Twitter if you have not already. We're having fun discussions in there. Join us for the Dunker Spot online watch parties. We are having fun. We are watching these finals games. We're also watching W games. We just watched SmackDown on Friday. We saw Solo just, he thumbed one of his brothers. It was wild. We were watching a little bit of everything in the watch parties. So come have fun with us. The link should be in the description. So just click on that, enter your information. It is free, no shenanigans. If it's not hyperlinked in the description, just copy and paste it into your browser. Again, sign up. It is free, no shenanigans. And with that, I'll guess one quick note. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, subscribe to JJ Redick's YouTube channel if you haven't already for some reason. First pod of the week for us. We go twice a week. First pod, always on JJ's YouTube channel. So subscribe if you haven't. And with that, we will catch y'all later in the week.
The untrained eye works, folks.